Hey guys, this is Kendall Terry, and this is looking at the endocrine system. So first we have to look at what are three types of signaling mechanisms used by cells in the body. Of course, the first one we already know from the nervous system is neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are those chemicals that are released from one nerve cell and then have some kind of effect, and this could be on another nerve cell, it could be on a target cell, whatever may be the case. But we call these neurotransmitters are the chemicals that are released from a nerve. Hormones are another type, and in hormones, these are chemicals that are secreted into extracellular fluid and carried by the blood and can therefore act at a distance from its source. And these primarily are going to be produced by glands in the body and then transferred to other areas of the body. And we'll look at some of these hormones in the endocrine system and what they cause. And then there's paracrine regulators. Now, paracrine means that it's a short distance. So there's chemical molecules that are released and act within an organ as a local regulator. So when we look at all three of these, for instance, in this slide, you get neurotransmitters from a nerve cell that will act on a target cell. Very close reaction taking place. That nerve cell is going to be right next to that target cell. Then you've got hormones produced by a gland somewhere, transported through the bloodstream to that target cell. This could be from one side of the body to the other, in essence. And then you've got the paracrine regulation, where you have a cell near in the extracellular fluid that will release to that target cell. What organs are involved in the function of the endocrine system? This is a lot of the organs that we call glands in the body. So up here in the brain, you've got the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. We'll look at both of those in a little bit. In the neck region, right in here, you've got the thyroid, and right behind the thyroid is the parathyroid glands. On top of the heart, you have the thymus. Right on top of the kidneys, you have the adrenal glands. Right there with the stomach, you have the pancreas. We've talked about the pancreas some. We'll talk about it more. In males, the testes, and then in females, the ovaries. And those are the primary organs that we'll talk about with the endocrine system. So what's a characteristic of a hormone? A hormone must be sufficiently complex because it's got to convey an important information to its target. So that has to be pretty complex. You don't want it just attaching or causing a reaction anywhere in the body. You want it to be specific. But it also has to be stable. So if it's too complex, then it's probably not stable. But it has to be adequately stable to be able to go from one side of the body to another. What are the chemical categories of hormones? Well, this is where I want you to do some research. I want you to partner up with someone in the class, use page 921, and answer this question of what are some hormone molecules in the body? What are the three chemical categories? And then choose two examples of each from table 46.1 and give more detail about that hormone. And then I want you to discuss those with me. So this will be a time to pause the video, do question 4, record that in your interactive notebook, discuss that with me, and then you can come back and finish the video. So here we have the next question. What are the two ways to describe hormones based on their chemical nature? Well, there's two types. There's lipophilic, which are fat-soluble, and there's hydrophilic, which are water-soluble. Depending on the type, the transport from the secretion to the target is going to be different, but the process is pretty much the same. So the transport of the hydrophilic, those can just go through the blood system. They're fine. The lipophilic needs a transport protein, and that transport protein will attach and carry it through the blood. So both of those are going to go through blood vessels. They're going to find the target cell. Now, they're going to come in contact with a lot of cells, but the target cell is the one that's going to be specific. And then once it's comes in contact with that target cell, it's going to cause a reaction. Those that don't come in contact with the target cell will be filtered out through the liver and the kidneys. This is another time now I want you to take a moment, and I want you to partner up, and I want you to analyze how does aspirin help reduce inflammation. This is an important question that comes up. If you have an injury, you take some aspirin. It helps reduce the swelling. It helps to ease the pain. So how does it work? Pair up with a partner. Use page 925 in your book. Describe how aspirin reduces inflammation. What are the negative side effects? What drugs have potential to not have these negative side effects? Place all of this in your interactive notebook and discuss this with me. So right now would be the time to pause this until this part has been done. All right, so next we have, how does lipophilic hormones cause a cell reaction? Well, because they're lipophilic, remember the cell membrane right here on the screen is a lipid as well. It's phospholipids. So those hormones can actually just go straight through the cell membrane. They attach to a receptor molecule inside of the cell. That receptor will cause mRNA to be made. mRNA will be transcribed and then translated into a protein, and that protein will cause some sort of cell response. What about the hydrophilic hormones? In the hydrophilic reactions, because they're hydrophilic or water-loving, they cannot go through the cell membrane. So those must have some type of receptor protein in the cell membrane. And there's two types here. We've got receptors function as a kinase enzyme, where they will attach to a protein and then cause a an ATP molecule to break a phosphate off and attach it to a target protein. This will activate it and then cause some kind of cellular response. They could be used in an activation of G proteins, where they will cause a G-coupled protein reaction to turn on a G protein or activate a G protein, which will cause a second message to be sent inside of the cell, and this usually trips some kind of cascade effect. You can go back and review the cell communications to get more specific with that. All right, right now I want you to partner up once again, and I want you to use section 46.2 in your book to compare lipophilic and hydrophilic hormones. I've already given you a base to start with. Now you go and give kind of like a Venn diagram comparison here. Place this information in your interactive and give examples and descriptions, and then discuss this with me before proceeding. So go ahead and pause the video now. All right, so the last little bit here is, what is the hypothalamus? Hypothalamus is part of the forebrain that participates in the basic drives and emotions and controls the secretions of the pituitary gland, which is directly below it. Which brings up the question then, what is the pituitary gland? This regulates many of the other endocrine glands in the body. It's also called the hypophysis. We'll look at that in a minute. This hangs by a stalk from the hypothalamus at the base of the brain, posterior to the optic chasm, or where the optic nerve separates. And it's made up of two parts. So if we look at the two parts here, we've got the anterior pituitary, which is the adenohypophysis. This appears glandular, so you're looking at this one here, and it looks like other glands in the body. Develops from a patch of epithelial tissue that pinches off from the roof of the embryo's mouth. So if you feel in the roof of your mouth that soft palate, it's right above that. And it's independent pituitary gland. Although it is connected to the posterior pituitary, it functions on its own. The posterior pituitary, also called the neurohypophysis, appears fibrous, and it contains axons that originate in the cell bodies of the hypothalamus and extend the distance of the stalk to actually keep direct contact with the hypothalamus. So those remaining in direct contact will come into play when we actually look at some of those hormones and some of those connections that are made, the neurotransmitters and that sort of thing.